A walk among the stars, the monsters, the paranormal, and supernatural. Join your tour guides, Justin and Josh, on this cryptic journey through life and beyond. What you may not know is you've been on this journey for a long time, and you finally arrived. Join us and our cult by subscribing to this podcast and giving us a generous 5-star rating. With doing so, your soul will be set and the afterlife defined. Welcome to It's Cryptic Out There.
Welcome back to It's Cryptic Out There podcast. I'm your host, Justin. Alongside with me, Josh, my co-host.
Hello, everybody.
You don't have a catchphrase today?
I thought about one over here, but none really spoke to me.
Nothing clicked?
Nothing clicked, really, yeah. I mean, we had a whole week off.
Yeah, we had a break, yeah.
And then I just forgot I even did that.
Yeah.
So it never came together.
Right. So, today was kind of like a quick idea. We planned this just a few days ago, but we have our favorite guest on this podcast, Andy Wilburn. He's in studio today, and there's a certain topic that we're going to discuss that's very, very bizarre.
I guess viewer discretion advised.
Yeah, trigger warning for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Erotica Asphyxiation, is that right? Is that how you say it?
Auto Erotica Asphyxiation.
Okay. It was hard for me to pronounce that. English major.
Hey.
Yeah. So, Andy, you mentioned, you brought it up that you're very familiar with, I guess, people doing it, or you know stories about it. Could you elaborate on like what exactly it is and why people do it?
Yeah, so Auto Erotica Asphyxiation is self-asphyxiation for sexual pleasure.
Right.
That's the best way to describe it. And I've had the opportunity, I use that term loosely.
Yeah.
So I became familiar with it doing some of the death cases that I've worked through the years. And those cases get hidden a lot while we work a suicide or an accidental death. You'll come upon a situation that doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And anytime you have somebody that has died by any type of hanging, anything that's around their neck, I like the old Gil Grissom term, does the scene make sense? Mm. And a lot of times as investigators, we'll find scenes that don't make sense. Right. And a lot of the deaths, the autoerotica deaths, they do role playing as part of the process. So I'll tell you how it started. It started back in the 17th century when hanging was the punishment for death. And the people that were stationed below the gallows noticed that when the victim would fall below the gallows right before they died, they noticed that the males would be aroused. Mm. They would see an erection. I guess they didn't have the best underwear back in the day.
Cleared it off. Just some
didn't
cloth.
have the spandex rolling back then.
Hanging the jimmy out, right?
Right.
The jimmy.
And so that's when it really started. It's like, oh, so, putting something around your neck right before you die gives you an arousal. Mm-hmm. And that's what started it. And it has been around since then. There are people famous that have died. It's There are doctors and lawyers, and the case studies are out there where people. It is not a target of any type of class or race or culture or anything. It's everywhere, and it's funny because I say funny because if you dig during one of those, the family will find this person, and oftentimes they'll be dressed up in a way that they would normally not dress. Like some of the videos that I've got to see, there was this one guy that dressed in his wife's clothing, her panties and pantyhose and a dress, but they do that and they video it, and they go through this process, and they a lot of times will use some kind of ladder or some kind of step, and they rig the rope to where there's a release that will let the knot loose right before they're getting ready to black out. They die because they miss that release. A lot of times it's a screwdriver, a tool, or the edge of the rope, and you can see them swing for that and miss it, and then they black out.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible way to die. Of course, they black out. But when you watch the body hang there and the body struggle to find air, it's pretty traumatic to watch.
Yeah.
It's pretty bizarre.
Wow.
I'm a big, mixed martial arts fan. Actually trained it. Josh has trained it. I never been put to sleep in a submission or whatever, but there's some fights in the UFC where they hold the choke too long, and it is kind of disturbing to see him already out and it's still choking him.
The one that always sticks out to me is the guy who's getting choked out. Maybe is it Connor and Diaz, where his arms just kind of are reaching as he's getting choked out. It's some guy.
Yeah.
And just to see like that, like you're just trying to do whatever.
Whatever
you possibly can getting this in.
And it slows down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's losing that oxygen and he's going out.
Until he's done.
And that's the only, I guess that's the closest thing I've seen with someone getting almost choked to death. Not necessarily getting off on doing that and then an accidental suicide.
Yeah, it's sad anyway, because a lot of people of various ages, unfortunately some young people try that, and they'll do it, they'll try to sit down or lean against a corner where they're close to the ground, thinking that they'll be able to get out of the hold, with a belt or a rope or a sheet or a cloth or something, thinking, I'm so close to the ground, all I gotta do is take the weight off.
Do you have a particular age that's most common in that, for a young adult or a teen? Or
unfortunately, teenagers try it when they hear about it, because they'll try anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've seen TikTok,
they'll
try anything.
Yeah.
But I watched a video of a guy that was a doctor, and this is one of the strangest videos that I think I've ever seen, who managed to put a rope all the way around his body, even his arms, so tight to where it cut off the air to his chest, but he could barely breathe. And his erotic fantasy that he was playing out was for somebody to see him. So he videoed himself. This is real.
Yeah.
Everything I'm telling you is real.
Yeah.
It's just, it gets so bizarre. He videoed himself from his front door going to his mailbox like that.
Jesus.
In his underwear, asphyxiated with his arms around his chest.
During broad daylight?
In the early morning.
Wow.
And he would stop when a car was coming. But this dude was basically nude with this rope around him in this upper class neighborhood. But the part of the fantasy was for somebody to catch him. That was part of the erotic part of that.
He died.
He eventually died because that's how we got the videos.
Jeez.
So I went. The reason I didn't work these cases. I went to a sexual deviance course taught by a guy that became a really good friend of mine, a profiler for state police, who was a Kansas City homicide investigator for a long time.
Wow.
And he eventually gave me those videos because I taught death investigation all over the state, and I taught at Radford too. And I was very picky who I showed those type videos to.
Yeah.
Of course.
But there was another one the guy told you about that dressed up in his wife's clothing.
Yeah.
She found him dead, and the investigators. He told me he got there, and she didn't know that the video was rolling, so he had hidden the camera. And so she had dressed him.
I was about to ask. I was
clothes.
I was about to ask. Was she aware that he was into that kind of stuff?
No,
Okay.
no clue whatsoever, and was so embarrassed that she redressed him and cut him down, and was just like, "What in the hell is this?"
Yeah.
And then came to her senses, like, I can't call 911 with him in my freaking panties.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So put clothes on him, hid everything, and just like he killed himself.
Was that one recorded?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because
Yeah.
that would have looked
It's
bad
the
on
hidden
her.
camera. Well, they would have had it all on tape.
Investigators
The whole
found
thing,
it all.
Yeah.
And it gets weird when the insurance is involved, because a lot of those policies won't pay for suicide.
Yeah.
But these are they're ruled accidental because they don't mean to kill themselves.
Yeah.
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 What they want to do is go through that process, get the release, and they'll watch that video later and masturbate to it. That's the goal
Yeah.
of all of that. There was a guy, and this guy was outside, and he was at a barn or something like that. No, it wasn't a barn. He was outside somehow, and there was a ladder involved, and he dressed up as a cowboy, and he was smoking, and he was walking around, he was smoking, he had boots on, had a hat on. He said, what's bizarre about this one is he did not like cowboys. He did not smoke. But this was part of his fantasy during the sexual deviant stuff, was to play the dress up of a cowboy. Like he hid all this stuff from his family. The cowboy hat, because they'd been like, what is this stuff, dude?
Yeah.
You know,
It's almost comical, but it's not funny that obviously they die. But just scenarios of like that in particular, I'm gonna keep that a secret. You know, it's just
Like dressing up as the thing you hate, doing something you don't enjoy.
right.
Like, are you just maybe viewing it as embarrassing to yourself, and it's maybe a power trip.
You like to watch that humiliation.
Yeah. Like maybe you don't have someone who would humiliate you like that.
Yeah.
So you just humiliate yourself, and then, like you said, you can go back and watch it later and be like, wow, I'm such a, sick deviant or whatever, just looking at yourself like that, that's what I would think.
I've worked people that have hung themselves and some of those are bizarre. I worked this guy was 24. I called him Little E because he was a huge Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan.
Okay.
So went into his apartment, posters everywhere. You know, this dude is. He had tied the rope right above his bed and stood up and just took the weight off, just kind of, I guess, kneeled down and hung himself and died. All he had to do was stand up.
Wow.
Did he want to die?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was so determined. I don't know how you have that willpower.
No.
Man.
How do you suppress that urge just to put your feet down on the bed and stand up?
I would.
Because his knees were almost touching the bed.
You would think the willingness to die has to be more than to stay alive.
Exactly.
To fight through the body's natural reaction to want to live. I mean, you're having to choke yourself out to the point where you'll continue to hang until you die.
It's so agonizing and just to fight through that, just to get.
And I'm sure as the more we talk about suicides and stuff, but it's just one of those things where it's just like, why would anyone, you know, what gets them into that position, or to choose something like that where you are torturing yourself to death, you know?
You're so determined.
Yeah, or people like, you know, throw a toaster in a bathtub with you and electrocute yourself. Like stuff like that. It's like, man, that is so incredibly painful, you know?
Yeah.
But when you think of someone who may overdose or something, you're like, okay, well, you were completely unconscious and then just died or whatever.
And I always try to spend, you know, when I worked any of those cases, I always try to spend time in there alone with them in that position, thinking the steps they went through. Does it all make sense? Because you want to make sure there's no foul play. And you look for notes, you look for text messages, you look for what traumatic event did they go through.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, and then I hear this ruckus outside, and I walk outside. This dude's mom's out there fighting the officers to get in. And I walk outside, and she's like, "Is he dead?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I knew it. I knew it." I said, "How did you know?" She said there was something in his voice that he was going to do it. I said, "Well, tell me what's been going on." Just lost his girlfriend. Just lost his job. The two main things that people commit suicide for.
Yeah.
And she said there was something. She said, as soon as I hung up the phone with him, I came over here. I knew he was going to do it. And she said, there's nothing I could do. And I was like, dang. Had another one. There was two gay guys living together. And one of them was, the guy that killed himself was a school teacher.
Wow.
A school teacher. So they got in this spat back and forth. And one of them left. And, you know, it was very verbal. No violence or anything like that. And I said, talked about one of them moving out, so it must have been, you know, pretty serious what they were talking about. And so I go in, I'm walking around, and one of the dog is on insulin. So in the kitchen, I found a full needle full of insulin.
Jeez.
So I'm like, okay, that was option one. And on the couch, I can see where on the carpet below the couch, there's blood stains. So I look at his wrist, and he's cut his wrist, but it's not bleeding fast enough. So then he goes in like a room about like this, that it really wasn't, it's more like a storage room. And he busted out a ceiling tile and hung himself from the rafter. He climbed up on it was a table or something, and again, just lowered himself down. Lowered himself down, and it was, to me, one of the most bizarre things was his glasses were still on his face. God. And I just, like, I'll never forget that
one
image.
Detail.
Yeah, one detail. It's like,
yeah,
you just, and he wanted the boyfriend to find him because he pulled his vehicle around back and hit it. He wanted him to find him. Because he knew, because if he came back and the vehicle was up front, he may not stop.
yeah.
So he hid the vehicle, so he found him. He had to find him.
That's a
Cold, man.
power trip.
That's
like,
brutal.
I'm gonna kill myself,
And I'm gonna make you,
to make you deal with all the
because
trauma.
we fought, and that's the last thing you're gonna see.
That's gonna
Make him
chills.
feel guilty.
Yeah,
Make him feel guilty.
that's crazy.
I'm gonna
Your
be honest.
fault.
I feel wheezy listening to all
Yeah,
this. I'm having a hard time right now. God.
I mean, that's just vindictive.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't imagine just being like, I'll just kill myself to get back at you for this fight. You know,
That is
like,
the ultimate guilt trip.
yeah. That's crazy. So in that instance, did you find like a note, or did you just take it as they fought and he killed himself?
A rough note, basically saying it's your fault. You know, instead of moving out, I thought this would be the easiest way.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. Instead of moving out. I mean, my gosh.
And you could see the thought process. Insulin, I don't know if that'll kill me. cut my wrist, but it hurt probably, so didn't do it deep enough, not bleeding out.
God, I have a problem with like wrist cutting.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Like I have a tattoo on my wrist, and that was one of the most difficult things to get through. And then just hearing somebody doing that just gets me upset.
Dude, you talk about cutting the wrist. When I worked at Tech, so I worked 2 years at Tech PD.
Yeah.
We got a call of a guy that had attempted suicide. He was in the shower at one of the dorms, and he took a knife and he cut all the way up his arm. 37 staples. We got there. There was so much blood. I'm like, there's no way this kid's gonna live. There's no freaking way.
Y'all gonna see me pass out.
Well, at least you're in that chair.
I mean, it was filleted open.
Yeah.
When we got there.
Yeah.
And so we got there. I went in first, but to try and make it safe. And of course, the knife's laying there. His dude's passed out.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And we wrap him up and just go.
Get him out of there.
At least you saved him.
37 staples.
Yeah.
Jesus.
He's gonna have a wicked scar.
Can you imagine
Yeah.
doing that all the way up your arm?
I don't even know how I'd get through like just the
I know.
first.
I know. I'd be like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like this
Gotta be a
hurts
better
too
way.
bad. I feel like I'd pass out from the pain.
Oh, yeah.
Before I'd ever even get deep enough to start bleeding.
I used to be on Accutane. I had really bad back knee and on my chest. This was like in 7th grade or whatever. And this is when Accutane was that medication was like popping or whatever. But I think got rid of it because it caused people to commit suicide.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I would have to prick my finger every time for like to get the medication or whatever, and I would pass out just by a prick of a finger.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man.
So like every time I get a new tattoo or whatever, I make sure I gotta eat a shit ton, and then have like a soda or something while I'm getting the tattoo.
Wow. Wow. Man, that's a process for you.
You
to
must
get
be
to.
pretty motivated though.
I love tattoos, but
Well, that's the thing. You're doing what you can to get them.
yeah.
Go through, do whatever you do.
You sure you wouldn't like just a sticker book or something?
Just get henna tattoos just every week.
I got this Misfit tattoo, and when he was getting right there in the corner, I started, fading out. And he's like, oh shit. I was like, I'm about to pass out. He's like, oh shit. So he turns, and it's just like a sugar pill. It looks like a Tums. He's like, take this. And it just brought me back to life.
Nice.
Yeah.
He experienced that before, hadn't he? He knew what to do.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
He had it in his drawer. He's like, yep, there you go.
Dude, when I was getting the alien abducting Sasquatch on the second session, he was sitting there and he was just digging just to get that shading in, to get deep enough so it wouldn't have to keep getting back over. And I remember sitting there and just feeling like I was going to throw up because I'd already been there for 6.5 hours of just this digging.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I was like, I have to stop. I was like, I need to walk outside. I need to get out of here because if I take much more of this, I'm going to die. I was like, I'm not going to be able to make it out of here.
I'm sure you've passed out before, right? You never passed out before? At all? Well, it's like you get tunnel vision, and you just see darkness going around, and it's a numbing feeling, and then a ringing sound, and that's when it's just like, I need sugar.
I was doing yoga one time, and I hadn't eaten anything, and I got up from a position and stood up, and I was just like, man, something doesn't feel right, and I immediately fell down on the couch, and kind of just like at the last second was like, what happened? And just ate some like crackers real quick and was like, okay, wow.
When I passed out on Accutane, it was hilarious because I was 7th grade or whatever. My brother was with me and my mom. Well, when I came to and woke up, for whatever reason, I was just like, where am I? And my brother was like, that's stupid. But yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm a little sensitive to all that.
Yeah. Well, and to think about some of these people, like just what you can't go through, but what they went through to.
Were you talking about the gay couple? Like, just imagine how awful that whole time he's just trying to kill himself with different type of things. God, that's just.
And
worrying about this other dude showing back up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure he was like, I gotta get this done.
Yeah.
Because what happens if you get caught in the act or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Then it's you've lost that whole like vindictive or revenge, I guess.
Yeah.
You've lost the whole revenge aspect of killing yourself at that point.
Yeah.
But that person obviously had to have some deeply emotional issues.
No doubt.
To have to, I guess everyone, to want to kill yourself. You
But
know?
was a great school teacher.
Hmm.
Yeah, in Pulaski County
Wow.
said he was a great, very popular school teacher. I'm just like, I had another gay couple that one was very masculine, into guns.
Mm-hmm.
One was very, very feminine. So they're complete opposites. And we go, and the guy's got a gunshot wound to the chest. The guy that's a gun guy and masculine, you know, he's got some tattoos and stuff. And we go, and you know, they put the other kid in the back bedroom, and he's tore all to hell. I mean, he's just can't console him, can't calm him down, can't anything. And I go in, and you know, I'm looking. I want to see. I would see if I can figure out how far away the gun was to his chest. So that's what I want to know. Because if it's obvious that, because the story he tells is that the guy had been at the gun range and came back and they started drinking. Shock.
Yeah.
Somebody dies every drinking. Ever been to the gun range? And
God.
they get in this argument, and the guy's like, the real feminine guy, and I'm not making fun of him, but
Yeah.
he's like, I'll just kill myself. And the guy's like, no, I'll just kill myself. And he puts the gun to his chest and pulls the trigger, thinking it's unloaded.
Oh man, this was accidental.
Right.
Man.
But he had left one in the chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, that's going to be pretty easy to figure out if that story's true or not.
Yeah.
So I peel back his shirt and look, and it's obviously a contact gunshot wound. So the story makes sense so far. And so this guy, I'm like, first of all, guys, why didn't you take him out instead of further into the scene?
Yeah.
So at some point, we got to get him out. And, you know, when you're talking to this kid, I really wanted to find somebody to calm him down. So, how do I say this the right way? We had an officer that went both ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was the perfect guy to talk to him. So got him in there, calmed him down, and was able to get the whole story. Everything was exactly where we thought, where he said it was. The holster, where was the holster at? Where was the alcohol at? And so those little details, finding them out right after the event was crucial, because if not, you know, that's one of those you'd never be able to prove if the guy stuck to the story, if he really did it, you know.
Yeah.
But the guy was so feminine. I mean, I'd be surprised if he could really go through with killing somebody.
Yeah.
But still,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was one of those scenes that was just,
You think about it though, some people, you know, will surprise you. I mean, look at how many like major murders that have happened where it's just been like a woman, very small woman.
and it could have been an act.
Yeah.
Could have been a total act.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we didn't know. We never met these people before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I was wondering, you know, when you go into a situation like that, it's obviously very high intensity and stuff like that. You know, I kind of hate to say that you're lucky to have had all these experience to go in, and I mean, I couldn't imagine going up to somebody with a gunshot wound to their chest and just pulling apart their shirt and being like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I would probably pass out before I even open the door.
Exactly.
You know, just not being able to do that. So when you get in there, do you guys just kind of, do you talk to all the officers there, just get a read of it, and then do you try to go in there just completely unbiased about the situation, not kind of forming an opinion and just being like, like you said, you go in there, spend as much time, what's that process like?
Yeah, so what we really want, what we teach our first responders to do on the death scene. Now, if it's somebody that needs medical attention, do what you got to do. Tear the scene up, I don't care. Mm-hmm. Somebody's dead, do the absolute minimum because we're looking for trace evidence. We're looking for the fingerprints. We're looking for that hair, that fiber, anything. So I want them to take the same route out that they took in. I want you to clear it. I want you to get that guy out, not further in my scene.
Yeah.
And I want you to get the heck out and stay out till I get there. I want you to shut it down completely.
Yeah.
My process was always, if there's a death, I get a search warrant. I don't care if it's you're in the house, you're dead, you're the only one who lives there, search warrant. Because then I don't have to worry about it later.
Yeah.
And there's a case, I'll tell you, we'll talk about Bob Shell a little bit, another bizarre sex case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the reason why anytime after that, it was always search warrant. So that's a process. So then, while we're interviewing this guy, which can be going on while we're getting the search warrant, if he's cooperative, then we can do a slow, deliberate work our way in from the front door. We can do what's called oblique lighting, where we're looking for footprints, we're looking for hair and fiber as we go in, and we don't automatically get. Everybody's like, oh, and the young guys would go, well, we got to get the body out of here. I'm like, no, we don't. We work our way to the body.
Man, body ain't going nowhere.
It ain't going nowhere till I say it goes. Well, the medical examiner really is the one that determines when the body leaves. But it is a long and slow process, and
it's like a puzzle before you get to like
it is
completion. I guess the body.
Yeah, yeah. And if the body's back here, it may take us an hour to get from there all the way to here.
Yeah.
Because there may be a shell casing, there may be the holster, we may find the liquor bottle, we may find all this other stuff. But it's so easy to get distracted by all the other things that go on during that scene.
I'm literally sitting here thinking like, man, I can imagine, say, it's just somebody who lived alone, and now you're having to go through the entire house to try to figure out, oh, well, I see that there's a half drink on the kitchen counter. Where did they go from there? Were they in the basement, came upstairs, and then just having to, before you even get to the body, like you're just trying to figure out how they even get to where they're at.
Or there could be, you're trying to observe something right here, but next somebody's, brain's blown out. So the distraction's probably difficult, I'm sure.
Because I couldn't imagine that it gets, I don't know, does it get easier almost to process as you go from situation to situation? Because I'm sure, like you said, with the guy who killed himself in his glasses, I'm sure that is maybe easier to deal with than someone who has, shot themselves in the head with a shotgun or something like that,
Well, it's the details that you learn to look for. Like, having his glasses on told me that there wasn't a struggle. Mm-hmm. So to me, that was key.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, because you always wonder, does it make sense? Does what we are seeing make sense with what we're being told, or what the 911 call is, or whatever?
Yeah.
We had a guy one time. He was found dead. We go the long story. I will skip because he ended up having a heart attack watching porn on his computer.
Jesus.
Lotion. In his hand,
man.
His face down.
Oh man!
But it was a slow process to be able to get the search warrant, even turn him over to see if there's any wounds. Mm-hmm. Is there a stab wound? Did he overdose? Was he choked? It is such, and you want to go in and you want to say, I got to really motor. I got to see what's on the other side. I got to see if he's been beat up,
like a previous injury or something like that.
Yeah, you can't. Because then you can't put a piece of evidence back. So if you ruin that opportunity to discover that evidence you got to do it in a certain order or you're screwed. Because if we end up going to court, the experts know what the order's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And if you don't do it in that order, then you lose the case.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Bob Shell was one. Yeah. He was the famous photographer.
Now, I read, you sent me that a while back, and I read a little bit about it, but I wanted to wait to, do an episode on it, but it kind of, other ones came in the way, but, if you want to like explain
I was
like
gonna say, I don't
what
know
all
anything
happened,
about
yeah,
it.
I would love to
Yeah.
hear it.
Yeah, I'll do
Yeah.
a quick summary of it, and
Yeah.
if we want to do an episode, fine.
Yeah.
We got a call one night from Bob saying that his 19-year-old model had overdosed, and he's 56, world-renowned photographer, editor of photography magazine, consultant for Canon cameras,
Wow. Wow. Where's this at?
studio downtown Radford.
Oh, wow.
Back in early 2000s, right?
Yeah, 2004 is when this happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we get there and we find this beautiful young girl. Her name's Marion, and she's in this like cat suit, crotchless cat suit, laying on the bed. And EMS gets there and they roll her over. She is obviously dead.
Yeah.
She's real dead. They turn her over and urine comes out, and the urine is cold. My wonderful rescue squad takes her to the emergency room anyway. Afterward, we have a long conversation after the fact several days later. She's part of my crime scene,
Yeah.
but they remove her. They said we refuse to believe that this beautiful young girl was dead. So I guess they thought they were going to play Jesus Christ
Razor.
and raise her from the dead
Yeah.
at the emergency room.
Yeah. Because when you say that she was real dead, like, what do you know without going up and checking a pulse where you're like, okay, this
Rigor
person's
mortis?
dead?
Rigor mortis had not set in, but her skin was cold, and if her urine's cold, her core is cold.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I mean by real dead.
All right, yeah.
And if the blood starts to settle, that's lividity. So if the blood is starting to settle at the lowest points of the body,
Okay.
Does blood get darker as the longer it sits? Mm-hmm. Okay.
yeah, but it coagulates at the lowest point of the body.
So, like, if you were laying on your back, it would also
It's all going to be in the back and your butt and
Yeah,
bottom
okay.
underneath your legs.
Wow.
Yeah. So gone. Now I don't have a crime scene. I just have this old man, and he starts telling me they'd done a photo shoot with 2 professional bondage people from Seattle. He flew them out. That she wanted to go into the bondage porn. She wanted to be a bondage porn star, and that he had taken photos. Long story short, he had given her hospice grade liquid morphine that night.
What?
How did he get that?
His mom died of cancer.
Okay.
Oh, he had like
and
leftovers?
He saved it.
Oh, man.
He also gave her 30 Xanaxes
Oh my
that she
god.
took. Now she was a drug user.
I was going to say, she's going to be
That
real
was her
dead after
favorite.
that. Yeah. Like,
You actually cannot overdose on those.
on either morphine or?
Just the Xanaxes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy.
They'll mess you up, but apparently, according to the medical examiner, that wouldn't have killed her by herself.
Okay.
But she had 17 times the lethal limit of morphine in her. That is what really killed her.
Yeah.
That is insane.
After she was dead, he had anal sex with her
Oh, man.
and took pictures along the way.
Oh my god.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So his story didn't add up. He was totally cooperative. Search whatever you want to. Bob, I'm going to look at your computer. Sure. Bob, so you took some pictures. Is there a compact flash card from your camera? Yep. It's in my pocket. Here you go. I took a picture of him handing it to me. Is there a videotape? Video ran the whole time? Yep. I took a picture. For some reason, I took a picture of him ejecting the tape. We had probably 15 motions in court to suppress that evidence, saying that I illegally took it from him.
Wow.
Because I didn't get a search warrant because he was so cooperative.
Oh, man.
Jesus.
Yeah. Now, we won those,
Yeah.
but we had to go through all that crap because I didn't do a search warrant. He was just so cooperative. So I'm looking on his computer, and Bob's walking around, and my boss has taken him to the police department. Bob's okay if I stick around. Do anything you want. I have nothing to hide. I'm looking on his computer. I find April 11th incident. April 11th, done the same thing. He had given her 17 tablets of amitriptyline, and she passed out. He
What is
said,
that?
It's a sleep medication.
Oh, okay.
So he had got all this medication in his name and given it to her.
Oh, man.
And
So
he
he's
made-
a veteran at doing stuff like this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just for her, though, it seemed like.
Yeah.
So April 11th, he had got with the same girl and
Oh,
done
okay,
the same
same girl.
thing.
Okay.
Same girl. And then
Okay.
June is when she died from the
Wow.
morphine.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. And so I got the photo shoot from April where she looks the same way, dude. She's eyes roll back in her head.
So she was unaware of it happening the first time?
So he sends her an email that I end up getting.
Yeah.
And I went ahead with the photo shoot, even though you passed out. You moaned and groaned. I didn't know what you were saying. But there's pictures of him grabbing her butt, grabbing her boobs, and stuff like that. She doesn't really respond. It's because she had moved from Boone, North Carolina. He was supplying her drugs. She just went with it.
Yeah.
So that night in June, he had flown these people in to teach him because he'd been trying to tie her up. She kept falling, hurting herself. So these are recognized experts in the industry that he flew in to teach him how to tie her up.
Well, I'm sure you can't when you're 17 times the morphine or all these sleeping pills, and you probably are just dead weight. You know?
There's some sick people.
Yeah.
You would not believe the photos
Ah,
the man took. So I got sued in federal court by him before the case even started because I put a picture of her on my case file notebook, and he saw it. And he said, those are copyrighted, protected as soon as I take my pictures. It was just a headshot of her.
yeah.
Because I did that for all the victims that, you know, this is for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Judge Conrad, I'll never forget, heard the motion, and he's like, so you want to sue because he has a picture of the victim of a homicide case on his notebook? Yes, they're protected. Case dismissed. Good luck, detective.
Yeah.
Thrown out.
What's disturbing to me is that in the June incident, that's literally necrophilia pictures
Yeah.
that he took.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, and it kind of makes me wonder if that's giving her that sleeping medication and basically having her as an unconscious body. Was he trying to live out some necrophilic fantasy?
So
You know?
I interview this dude after all this. I get warrants on him pretty quick, and I interview him, and I'm like, so there's these two pictures. You're gonna love this. I wish I'd have brought them.
Oh, God.
They're time stamped. Okay, they're time stamped photos, 10 minutes apart, and they're of her butt. This one has her butthole closed. This one, it's gapped open. 10 minutes apart.
Wow.
I'm like, Bob, what happened between these two photos? Oh, we had anal sex. How did you have anal sex if she was passed out? Well, before she passed out, she told me that I could have anal sex with her. So she pre-consented for you to stick your penis up her butt when she was passed out. Yeah,
She was expecting to be passed out while
That's
he was
his
doing-
story.
Okay.
That's
Right.
so convenient.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So how come 4 minutes later you dialed 911 that she wasn't breathing? Well, I realized then that she was in trouble. But what made you realize that? Well, she wasn't responding to me anymore.
This is so sick.
My God.
So that went to a jury trial. I spent 10 hours on the stand in this trial.
10 hours.
10 hours on the stand.
My God.
Dude, there were videos that they shot out in the woods of her sticking things inside her. That poor girl thought that she was going to be rich and famous, because some of them are. Some of them
Yeah.
are good money.
She probably thought this was her big break.
And
I mean, this guy's a legitimate photographer. I mean, why wouldn't you think that you would?
She stuck a rifle in her. She stuck
my.
beads in her.
Oh.
She stuck the end of a plunger in her.
Oh!
And she kept saying, "Now, Bob, do we need to do this?" No, I'll edit that out. He didn't edit a single thing. Had no intention to. None.
Wow.
But the reason we showed those videos in court, because towards the end, how much longer till I can get some Xanax? Or how much longer till I can get a pain pill? How much longer till
Okay.
to prove that was really the relationship?
Yeah, I mean, he
You talk
made
about
her-
sexual deviance.
I was
This
gonna say,
dude,
made her dependent.
she was dependent.
That is crazy. That
Admitted
is
to
crazy.
me that he couldn't give her cash because she would go buy drugs, so he had to go pay her light bill and her electric bill and her rent and everything.
Man. Oh man.
And he only got like 17 years or something. The jury said, he's an old man. They only convicted him of involuntary manslaughter.
Wait a second. So would he still be in prison? I'm trying to think. 17 years.
Yeah, but he's not much longer.
I mean,
Yeah.
that would have been in like 2004.
So
Right, or-
it took 4 years to take him to trial.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. So not even until 2008. Man. So he'd have been 60 years old when he went.
Yeah, wild
Wow.
case, man.
So he'll be 77, I guess, when he gets out. Man.
Bizarre. Somebody has a website that I sent you.
Yeah.
Somebody maintains a website for him that he's innocent. Part of the trial was that instead of me going to bed at 2 a.m. when we wrapped up the crime scene, is that I stayed up and manually changed the timestamps on all 600 photos that were taken that day, and then was at the autopsy at 8 o'clock the next morning. That I decided that night that I was going to frame Bob Shell for all this. That was
Wow.
the most bizarre.
Wow. Man, that's somebody on a power trip.
He must be
Thinking they could get away with anything.
Yeah, but he's kind of smart in a way doing all that.
Well, it kind of makes you wonder, like, or I guess it all sounds premeditated in a way of getting this poor girl addicted to drugs, being able to, and maybe he did accidentally kill her, but come on, you can't be giving people
He didn't mean to kill
doses
her.
of medication and not expect
Right.
something like that to happen. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, he didn't mean to kill her because she was doing everything he wanted.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that's the only time he had sex with her.
Really?
I think he saw the opportunity, yeah.
Did you learn anything about his past that maybe made him like that?
No, and he had done nude photography a lot. I think he just fell for this girl. And just maybe in the back of his mind, he felt like she was attracted to him. And, I think she was so dependent on the drugs, it's hard to tell what she told him, Yeah, you want to see my vagina? Here you go.
Yeah.
Can I
Well, I
have
mean,
some pills?
I was gonna say the stuff that she was doing. That's something. I mean, what someone addicted to drugs would do. Go to any lengths to be able to get your fix. You know?
Yeah.
Do you think being involved in like pornography like that for so long could mess up with your brain like that?
That's a real violent form too. If you think about it,
Yeah.
just the stuff that they were doing, very aggressive.
And it was her idea to go into the bondage stuff because he had done the Playboy style stuff,
Right.
is what he had done. And the idiot, while we were waiting to take him to trial, published a book overseas under a pseudonym of Robert Lee, The Art of Rope,
Wow.
which I have a copy of. I should bring it for you so you can
Okay.
look at it. And it's a collection of his, and she's in the book. And so we presented that as an exhibit that even though he's been charged with her murder, he's still trying to make money off her.
Yeah. Yeah.
God.
Man, poor
Why
girl.
hasn't this been like a Netflix documentary
Yeah,
or
'cause
something?
that's crazy.
How do you do it and not show the pictures?
That is true, yeah.
Well, I mean, some of the Netflix documentaries that are out there, I'm
Yeah.
surprised
Yeah.
they'd probably go to any lengths to get some of them.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the Night Stalker with Richard Ramirez, they were showing pictures of his murder scenes and just doing like the scribbles on the
Yeah.
eyes and stuff. Because I remember one of the pictures there was when he had raped that 80-year-old Asian woman and then killed both her and her husband.
Were they in bed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember
they had
that.
A picture of that.
Yeah, I was shocked when they showed that.
Well, it's just getting more shocking. It's cryptic out here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Going back to the teenagers getting involved with, dark stuff like this, do you think them watching pornography, well, I'm sure that plays a factor into it.
I feel like maybe it's just a person-to-person thing. Maybe not everyone's going to be as affected because, I've never done, I've never been pulled or have thought like, oh, I need to do autoerotic asphyxiation to please myself, But obviously there are some people who are, and I guess just if you have that mindset, maybe watching it on a video, or kind of like how we were talking about with TikTok and stuff, if there's a TikTok trend. One thing that I thought was very interesting when you were talking about in the 17th century and the guys getting around and it just spreading across the gallows, it's like the gallows was TikTok, man. They were like, let's go home and
that's a good point.
Try this out, and it just kept going and going until we get
the
to where we're at now. It's just always
let me do it better than this guy.
Well, it became a thing of you're getting hanged for your crimes to, I'm sure that now you go on Amazon and maybe find some specialized equipment or something where that fetish is now popularized.
Yeah, there's a nickname for it, and I don't even want to say what it is because I don't want young people. There's a nickname for it.
Yeah,
but we've all heard of women being choked during sex. As part of that. But that's a relationship thing where they trust each other. And they always have a safe word or a tap out or something like that. And this is just completely next level. I'll just do it my damn self kind of thing. I'm just like, there's got to be a better way.
I don't understand how you could get to that stage in your mind wanting to do
like
that.
Hyping yourself up for that. Just getting into that mindset.
So this guy, the profiler, the other thing that there's so much sexual deviance out there that people go next level. They had a case where they recovered a trooper, and I don't even know if it was Virginia, but he had the video. A trooper pulled over a guy and found a video camera rolling in his truck, and they seized it for some reason, and the guy was riding down the road screwing a live chicken in the truck.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I remember what it was. They arrested him because he was on the side of the road having sex with a dead deer. So they seized his truck and found the famous chicken video. Law enforcement, a lot of law enforcement around here, investigators have seen the chicken video. You ask one of them, any detectives, if they've seen if they've taken a sex crimes class, if they've seen the chicken video. That's how they got the chicken video. This guy
they played in the class?
In sex crimes classes.
Wow.
To show how people deviance in their mind.
How screwed up they are.
How screwed up they are.
But, honestly, like, you almost, if you're trying to prepare for, like, you have to see something like that, just to, like, I've talked about, like, I don't know how I'd ever address any of these situations. I'd have to have something prepare me for it.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
It's not going in and then getting that severe PTSD, I guess.
Yeah, well,
I'm sure you'll still get PTSD in general.
One thing that I was going to ask, going back to Bob Shell, you having a picture of her on your binder, these suicides that we've been talking about versus even involuntary manslaughter or murder, does your mindset change of, I'm doing this for the victim, like in a suicide case of just trying to maybe more so give the family comfort and trying to do that, whereas if it's a murder, it's like, okay, now I'm trying to get this person, like we have a goal here, we need to prove this. Justice, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Justice.
With suicide, it's, you're trying to work with the family and give them some kind of peace.
Yeah.
Because everybody's so ashamed of suicide. There's something, and I'm not. There's mental illness, obviously, but there's so much depression in the world, and people want to hide the fact that they have a loved one that commits suicide. And with me, you need to talk about it because you need to educate other people. What were the signs? Mm-hmm. And if you missed them, help other people find them.
Yeah.
You know, and we all know somebody that's killed themselves. And you look back and, you know, did you see it coming? Did you not? The ones that you don't see, then you got to dig. And it's like, okay, how did we not see this coming? What was going on in their life? Was it just a financial crisis?
Yeah.
You know, were they cheating on their spouse or something like that? What was so bad that they felt like they had to end their own life? And some are just so traumatic. We pulled up on a call in the West End of Radford. The guy hung himself in a tree in the front yard.
Oh, man.
And so to make it worse, we cut him down. Carillion Rescue shows up. And their policy, which we did not know at the time, is they have to administer CPR for 15 minutes before they quit. Imagine being a family member, knowing this guy
He's dead.
He's gone.
Yeah, if they don't get him back within a couple minutes,
Man, he's gone.
he ain't coming.
Yeah.
15 minutes. This guy bigger than I was. Because you can imagine what was rolling and squishing around for 15 minutes in the yard. And everybody's just standing around. So I go down, and first thing I do is, who's the family? Let's take a walk. Let's walk away
Exactly.
from the scene. Tell me about him. What was he upset about? Get to talking. You know, this guy was into drugs, and it was a domestic situation. He knew he was going to jail, and he just knew. But you can't let him sit there and watch that.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so many different things involved. Everybody just standing around watching, and they're 3 or 4 rescue guys taking turns. You know, just
Yeah.
my good Lord, can you stop already?
What kind
we
of?
can't.
Why is like a rule 15 minutes? I guess I would assume that they saved somebody in 15 minutes, so they just stuck with that.
I remember when my dad died, my brother and I started CPR on Dad, and there was no doubt Dad was dead. And so rescue shows up, and they take over. You know, they throw their stuff everywhere, and they're working him. And I'm like, please stop.
Yeah.
They're like, we can't unless my mom said so.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Mom? She's like, I can't. I was like, Mom, you got to tell him to quit. Because, I mean, it was probably that long.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous.
It's almost prolonging the inevitable.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
God.
That's
like-
more traumatic
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm just sitting there
than
thinking,
me
like,
giving him CPRs, watching them pound on him for 15 minutes.
It's like 99% knowing he's gone, but like maybe there's 1% of you that's just holding out hope through this entire experience. Because it's like it's not even really over yet. Because they have to go through here and continue to.
In her mind, she's like, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe. They're still working, so
Yeah.
they wouldn't be working if they didn't think there was a chance.
Yeah.
God, that's awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that.
Seriously.
Oh, yeah. And then when Mom died, 2 years later, I was down there.
Mm-hmm.
And then God bless them, they take their sweet old time. And I'm like, she's serious. Y'all got to come on. And then in the living room, they got her up on the gurney, and she just, I watched her. I'm like, you need to check her. Check her now. And they're like, oh yeah, we don't have pulse. I'm like, so they roll her out to the ambulance, which they go down 3 steps around the driveway, and I'm like, start CPR, and they work her for 10 minutes at least, and they get her heart to beat, but Mom is dead. So we have to make the decision 4 days later to unplug her at Roanoke Memorial because of all that. Now, if they'd have started immediately when she lived, I don't know. She had a much better chance than the 5 minutes it took them to roll her down the hill.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. And I bet that's just.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Being angry. Being so mad at that. That makes me angry just thinking about it. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like you didn't put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
You know, to try. I mean, that's awful.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
it's just, and people wonder why I'm just like numb to death. I'm like, well, I got my reasons, you know.
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
You
mean,
know?
when we talk about the Gina Renee Hall, and then the story that sticks out to me most vividly is you at your truck, and that whole experience. I think the lights were going off, or the
Yeah.
alarm
Yeah,
or
the
something.
lights, yeah.
That right there, like to me, that would be like almost viewing it as like someone's gone, but they're not really.
They're not really.
They're
gone.
not really gone. They're just
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, and you just don't know where they are at that point.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, until they're ready to
Oh,
show you.
and then I talk to people that, you know, they don't believe there's anything after this life, and
Yeah.
they don't believe in God. I'm like, then you've never been touched by the other side.
There's too much.
There's too much.
There's too much
Yeah.
to me. I think there's too much, regardless of what you believe in, to think that there's nothing. You
Yeah.
know, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we do this.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
we tell people, like, it gets weird, you know, because there's the stuff that we just don't talk about. You know, I think a lot of people are just based on, like, you know, if you grew up in this area and you just went to church for 30 years and never had any reason to question what you believe in or anything, and then one day you have a paranormal experience, I'm sure that changes your whole mindset
Yeah.
of what's going on around you. And it could just be the death of a loved one or something, you know.
Well, I appreciate you sharing those personal, you know,
Yeah.
tragic
Yeah.
stories. I couldn't imagine. I mean, God,
You know,
I could not.
one thing about the CPR, my grandma, she was a nurse in Radford. She went to nursing school there in the 50s, and she's told me stories of when CPR first came around. She's like, you don't understand how many people died when we first started doing CPR. So much to the point where we were like, this is never going to work.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to survive CPR. Everyone dies. And she said the first time that they saved someone's life, she was like, we were hooping and hollering and cheering like, we did it. We actually did it. We saved someone's life. And from there, she said they just got better at it, you know?
Yeah.
Because she would say back in that time, if you came in there, they would look at you and be like, you got like 3 days. Because there was nothing they could do
Nothing they
for
could
you.
do.
If you had a heart attack or something like that,
Yeah.
that was just it.
When did CPR become a thing, and who like created that?
I think it came around in the late 50s, maybe in the 60s or so.
Yeah.
And I don't know who created it, but
Yeah.
you think about it, like, that's wild
That is wild.
to think, just up to a certain
And look
point.
at it now. It's just do chest compressions,
Yeah.
Yeah.
pretty much.
I
They get
remember-
enough air.
Yeah, I remember you blow in their mouth, do that, and then they went away with blowing in the mouth and just do that.
They figure you get enough air through the chest compressions that you really don't have to blow in the mouth.
Gotcha.
It's more important for the heart to beat.
Yeah.
And like the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay
alive.
alive. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. That is wild.
I know.
This is a very effed up conversation.
But, you know, like, that's the gritty reality
Yeah.
of it, you know? There's so much of just no talk of death because of how uncomfortable it is.
People don't want to talk about it.
No,
That's the thing.
no.
People don't want to talk about suicide.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that's, you know, one of the points for kind of me mentioning it to you is people need to talk about
Yeah.
suicide.
Yeah.
They need to talk about it with their kids because
And I'm a perfect example of like me having trouble listening to it, the slitting the wrist, whatever. But even though I'm having trouble with it, I think it's important. People should know. People should talk
yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Well, it's like the last episode, you know, this 25 was a really, really rough year for me. I think, honestly, one of the worst years of my life, just mentally. And I got medicated, and like I tell people now, like, I'm criminally happy. You know, I'm so happy that it feels wrong in ways, you know, just being able to view things from a different light and being at like my lowest of lows and my darkest times, you know, like no one should ever feel like that. Or even get to the point, I mean, I say I was in like my lowest of lows, but through some of the stories you've told us, it just gets so much darker. Especially with some of the things people are willing to do to themselves just to die.
Right.
You know, that's a hard concept to grasp.
and what got them to that point.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a little sign one time that says the shadow is not the message, and I've thought about that so many times. People focus on the darkness instead of trying to find the light,
Yeah.
and that's what friends and family should be. You know, is finding that dude that just he ain't been right. You know, or that
Yeah.
girl that you know, my friend, you know, I think I told you in one of the episodes about my son's buddy.
Yeah.
And just, I hadn't heard from him for a while. You know, if people have those people in their lives that they're not acting right, or they seem different, or they act different, or they got the black circles around their eyes, ask them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, if the
that's all somebody
conversation
needs,
is dark, it's like, you haven't thought about hurting yourself, have you? People are like, I can't ask that. Why?
Yeah.
No.
You'll never know unless you ask, because it's already such an uncomfortable topic that as soon as you ask, it's only going to get more uncomfortable. So you just have to be.
It's too personal. I'm like, I'm looking out for my friend, my loved one.
I care about this person. You know, like
you got to get to the point.
Yeah, you have to. Nobody ever wants to be at the. You know, you're always going to regret if you never ask and something happens.
I mean, you don't want to ask, but I mean, sometimes you have to ask.
Yeah.
But have you ever known somebody that killed themselves? Is a question we can ask each other, or tried and thought, I'm not surprised. If so, that's a terrible feeling.
Yeah.
For them to wear that on their sleeve and they'll be able to stop it.
Especially if you can tell yourself, like, wow, that's not surprising. Well, then obviously you knew something was wrong.
You didn't do anything to help it.
Yeah. That's so scary. Because how many people are walking around like that right now? You know.
Or the surprise deaths too is the shock.
Have you had anything where it's been like, wow? Because you, like we've talked about, the scene has to make sense. Have you ever showed up anywhere and you've been like, wow, this really makes no sense. This person's living a great life and they're presumed to be happy. A lot of people talk about that with Chester Bennington.
Yeah.
Just things were so great. The singer of Blink-182, when he killed himself, everyone's like, this makes no sense. Like, just a couple days ago, there was this picture with his family and everybody was happy, and then he died. You know, so I was just wondering if you've had anything like that, and kind of how does that change the process of, oh, well, through an autoerotic asphyxiation, you got this, but now this seems like it's a completely blank canvas, and you really have to paint the picture.
Yeah, I've had some that really didn't make sense. There's probably one that still kind of bothers me a little bit. Just, I'm not sure about it. There was one kid that, you know, I was like, there's no way. He shot himself in the back of the head, supposedly with a .22 rifle. I'm like, nope.
Wow.
Nope. And then we checked his history, and he had some of the wall trim, the decorative trim, along like 3 foot up, and he had figured out that if you shoot that spinal cord right in that soft spot in your neck, that's the quickest way to die. And there were pictures and everything, and he had put the gun against that and put his thumb around.
Wow.
No other fingerprints on the gun.
Wow.
I'm just like, there's no way he did this to himself. None. Until we had to do a lot of research, went to the autopsy, fingerprinted the gun. I'm like, okay, I believe it now.
But why go through such a complex way to kill yourself?
I guess because you can't see it coming.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to shoot yourself here because they can see it. With him, it's just, once you get the gun in place, it's just your thumb and boom.
Yeah. It's just you and the willingness to do it.
I know, man. I was just like...
That would be what would bother me the most, is just, how did you even get to this point?
Right.
Like, how did you even pull the trigger? Like, even if you got the gun up on the trim, back of your head, or in any of these scenarios of being like, now's the time. You know? That's rough.
Yeah.
When did you, I guess, maybe start getting numb? I mean, you had your experiences when you were younger paranormally, but when you first got into maybe like your first suicide or your first death, maybe somebody was drunk driving or something, just along those lines, how's that changed from, say, the beginning of your career to the middle of your career to the ending of your career, just how you address each of these murders, suicides, anything like that?
Yeah, I can't think of any that ever bothered me, which is so sad to say. You know,
it tells a lot about maybe some experiences you had.
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's just that's what I was supposed to do in life, and so, I've been fortunate. I've never closed my eyes and seen one of those scenes.
Yeah.
I've never dreamed about any of them. I always felt like, I think in my mind, I always felt like I knew where they went.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I knew that wasn't the end for them. I just had to help figure out what happened to them.
Yeah.
The only ones that, I felt bad for were like the kids that I worked.
Yeah.
I felt bad for them. But even some of those, I felt were better off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because of
The situation they were in.
They
and
were
everything.
in on Earth, yeah.
Yeah.
I felt it was a better place for them to be on the other side.
Especially if they had no access to help or anything like that. I mean,
Yeah,
you
not
gotta
caring
think-
families.
Yeah, well, it's like I'm sure that's got to weigh a little heavy on you because I'm sure, as a police officer or detective, you want to help somebody. You never want to see them kill themselves, but
Right.
if you never know something's wrong, now you have to come in and do what they didn't get the help for. You have to do the other part of it. The bad side,
Yeah.
of what happens.
I also think that made me a better instructor for those that investigated,
Yeah.
having that different mindset than most of them. But I did fail some by not looking out for my own people's mental health when I had them work some of those scenes with me. For a long time, I always felt like it doesn't bother me, so it probably didn't bother them.
Yeah.
I learned later on that I was wrong,
Yeah.
that it disturbed a lot of them, and I should have, kind of required them to talk to somebody after those scenes, and just because I'm screwed up in the head doesn't.
I don't think that makes you like a bad person or anything like that, though.
If anything,
It's
it's
just, a good leader would have insisted that they go and just empty that bucket. You know what I mean?
I guess more so what I'm saying is I could just see is how I could walk into a situation maybe because I'm more extroverted of a person. I could see myself going into a ton of people or whatever and being comfortable. Say an introverted person going out and being more uncomfortable. I wouldn't think anything of it because I'm fine. I'm okay. It's like, well, what's wrong? What's the problem?
It's their job.
Yeah, and you being a leader, they're gonna follow you, especially if you're not disturbed or trying to be like, I don't know about this. You're willing to go into it head on. I could see somebody being like, well, if he can do it, then I can. That's sort of that vibe. But also to see that people can, because I feel like that's how you have to be to go into a situation and be like, kind of ignore the body until you get to the body, Like I feel like that's just a great skill to have, as maybe as messed up as that sounds.
I would think so, yeah.
I
would think so too.
Yeah.
It's like Louisa Cutting. I mean, that was a prime example.
Yeah.
There were a couple of those guys that I did pull aside and say, how you feel about that?
Yeah.
That was pretty messed up. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'll tell you, I'm going to set somebody up for you to talk to. I want you to go talk to them. And if y'all talk about football and baseball and weather, that's fine, but you're going to have a conversation. They're like,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, open up the door and she's right there.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
There's no preparation.
Yeah.
Right.
And that it's just disturbing what happened to her. Stabbed over 100 times, and then a knife left in your mouth. Like I couldn't imagine walking into that and being like, wow. But like I think we've heard before, being able to compose yourselves in those situations, and say, all right, like this is awful, especially when you talk about kids and stuff. But now we have to do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Now it's just a shell. That's all that's left.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was a very interesting, fascinating conversation. Like, I never would have thought of all the details you explained on how all this, would transpire. It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
On a lighter note, I wanted to ask, since majority of the time when you're with us, you like to talk about paranormal stuff. Is there a paranormal story that you can leave off to kind of like, not in a lighthearted way, in the episode, you know what I mean? Because what we just talked about is very dark. But do you have like something that would entertain the listeners, the watchers of like something paranormal?
So, I'll tell you I don't know if I told you this Gina Hall paranormal story. There's a bunch of them.
Oh, there's more than that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch. So Gina made some visits to the house. We had conversations with the flashlight a few times. She actually, if she or somebody from her side on the other side of the veil, I had a question for her, and it was I was trying to decide who to interview next, whether it was Robin Robinson or Skipper or whoever, and I knew that her spirit was there. So there were times, we would discuss her having dinner. Every time her name would come up, the broom in the kitchen would fall over. Every time. It's like, well, Gina's here. So there was one night that was really funny, because we were downstairs, and upstairs is at the time it was Katie, my oldest daughter's room, I think. And I had this awesome, it was Onkyo stereo system set up. Big speakers, nice receiver. Back then it was tape deck and CD player. And we were having a conversation about Gina, and we were getting ready to go to bed, and from upstairs the stereo system came on full blast 80s music.
Hell yeah.
I didn't even know we could get 80s music on the radio.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't serious or anything like that.
Yeah.
And whatever we were talking about that night, which it was something that was pretty important, that was a sign that night from Gina, because it was cranked.
Yeah.
And she often communicated, and I don't know if this is light enough for you, but it's interesting because I know everybody's interested in Gina.
Yeah.
She talked to me through music a lot.
Really?
A lot.
She liked to dance.
She did like to dance. And there's a song by Tim McGraw that kept coming on, and it was just like every time I got in the car. So I have this Spotify playlist that has, I bet, 90 songs on it, and this thing would come on like every other time I got in the car, and I'm just like,
Wow.
well, it's freaking Tim McGraw. I can't stand Tim McGraw.
Right.
And then Katie and Gina have the same birthday,
Oh,
Really?
Wow.
August 24th.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, happy birthday, Katie.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter, Madison, and Steve Epperly share the same name. Steve Madison, yeah.
So
You never told me this.
you're saying that this is fate, almost.
I'm saying
That's
there's some
crazy.
coincidences
Yeah,
that
that's
are just...
too coincidental.
There's a broomstick
crazy.
incident that you told me. We'll talk off air about it. That reminded me of that. But continue.
So, I finally asked Katie, I'm like, you gotta help me figure out what the song is. And so she printed off the lyrics, and I read it, and I was like, oh. And it's basically a point in the case where I appreciate what you're doing for me. Yeah, I wish I could think of the name of the song. You look it up. But the gist of it was, thank you for what you're doing. That's basically the lyrics of the song. And it's like, Dad, she's saying thank you. And I'm like, she is. That's exactly what she's saying.
Yeah.
Early on in the case, Mrs. Robinson came on all the time. Simon Garfunkel. Robin Robinson came on all the time.
Yeah.
And I ignored it. I'm like, wait a minute. That's Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah.
I know what that means. And so then I started really paying attention. And the songs, if I would hear them often, I'd be like, okay, I gotta look up the lyrics. It's wild, man. I mean,
I gave
that's
goosebumps.
that's wild.
So I tried, we've talked about remote viewing before.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a couple times trying to really connect with her. And I am very confident that she died in the trunk of the car.
In the trunk of the car.
In the trunk of the car. Because I lose the connection spiritually with her in the trunk. And that's why I don't think she knows where she's at.
That's deep.
Feel strongly
Yeah.
that I'm right there.
Yeah.
That she died in the trunk. That's why the psychics have tried to connect with her. Where are you at? Where are you at? All these theories come forward. She don't know where she's at.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense, I guess, Stephen Epperly taking her body somewhere. Was there blood? I can't remember exactly. Was there blood in the driver's side?
Just in the trunk. Just a
in the
little
trunk.
bit.
Okay.
She was wrapped in the blanket.
Mm-hmm.
She remembers that. She remembers being placed in the trunk.
Mm.
And that's when she died.
Jeez. I'm speechless.
Yeah. I'm trying to process it.
I can't. I can't.
Oh.
That's why I only give you little bits and pieces.
Yeah. What?
Let's show everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. I mean, every time you come on, it's my favorite episodes for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to hear the comments about this one.
I'm gonna promote the hell out of this.
Y'all are messed up, man.
You gotta be. I mean,
Yeah.
like, it's kind of like we were talking about with the suicide and depression and stuff. Like, I think murders and things, like, I think if more people just understood that there are violent people out there, there might be less violent people if we all just kind of recognize that something's wrong with somebody.
Pay attention,
You know?
man.
Yeah.
People just walking around with their head in the sand or in their phone. And
Communication is the
Or they
best.
just think, like, oh, nothing like that would ever happen, blah, blah, blah. They give their reason as to why something, like, I know my mom, sometimes she would say, oh, well, just, you wouldn't expect something like that to happen around here. Well, that's how it is everywhere.
Yeah.
Nobody ever expects anywhere like anything like that would happen, but it always tends to happen there.
And doing this podcast, it makes us realize more, like, say around here.
Yes.
When we do like the local stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there's stuff that I've learned, like, my dad was born in this area in 1960, and he's been here his whole life. And there's stuff that we've talked about that he didn't even know happened, and you got to think, that's crazy to live in an area and it's either just so hush-hush, or just because there's not social media during the time, it's not widespread, or not everyone knows about it, or just any number of things.
Well, in a college town, we never publicize suicides.
Yeah.
But there
I remember you telling me that.
a lot of suicides every year
Wow.
in colleges.
Yeah.
They get a lot of overdoses. We never publish those. We publish homicides and rapes and stuff like that. We don't have to disclose people kill themselves or overdose.
Yeah.
Do you think that's
Because
kind of
it's not a crime.
Do you think it's kind of sick because people want to know about the crimes more
We
than the
have to.
suicide? Yeah.
We're required to.
Okay.
Because it's a threat to the community. A suicide isn't.
Okay. Gotcha.
An overdose
Yeah,
isn't.
I see that point.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the university's not going to say anything.
Yeah.
Because it makes them look bad if they're
Yeah.
a college kid.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot more than people have any idea about.
Wasn't there a kid in Radford who got arrested and then he overdosed in holding? Or in the jail?
He'd actually been to jail for like 24 hours and somehow, I don't know what he must have had in his system
Yeah.
to where it would stay that long and then him die.
'Cause
never
I
did
remember-
understand that.
I remember it wasn't more so that he died, it was just more so the circumstances
Yeah.
of, like, how did this happen?
Yeah, he'd been in there like 24 hours.
Yeah.
The university police arrested him.
Yeah.
For like drunk in public or something.
Yeah, I remember that. And it's just, obviously Radford doesn't want to publicize that.
No.
You know?
Right.
But when you have something as crazy as that, somebody's going to get a hold of it. talk about it.
And I had people from university not want me to mention that Gina was an RU student.
Really?
Yeah, and that he had worked on campus. It stigmatizes the university. Can you not mention that?
People are so fucked.
I'm like, shut your face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for real.
It is true.
Well, it's like those are the people who walk around with their head in the sand.
These
That's
are
right.
people's lives.
If you just don't address it, then it's not a problem.
Right.
But you have all these kids on campus that I don't care what position you're in, from like the president of the college, like to me, it is your duty no matter what to have the safest place for these kids on campus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I think. Like, it should be protection all the way around. Like at Virginia Tech, you know, like I had to take a safety sort of thing for shootings, and there was like a 10-minute 911 call from the librarian at Columbine.
I had that call.
Yeah, and just her talking and everything, and
She basically got him killed.
yeah, and let me tell you, I was very taken aback by that.
Yeah,
I was
it's upsetting.
shocked. Yeah, I was shocked.
Because she didn't know any better.
Yeah.
That's
And that's what they were saying. And, yeah.
She was telling them to hide under the tables, which he came in there and killed just about all of them on that call.
Yeah. So
Tough.
it is. Yeah.
Communication's key. That's
For real.
the takeaway of this episode.
And it's
seems like.
easier, and I always say it's easy in hindsight, right? Like, we could look back in 1999 and look at Columbine and be like, wow, they didn't do all these things, or these kids had all this. Well, yeah, you know, like, it's really easy when we have a very large amount of school shootings every year, you know, to now look at all of these. I mean, even with the Major Stoneman Douglas School, like Nicholas Cruz, he's on trial right now, you know, and when you... Like, he killed all those kids in that school, walked down to the McDonald's, and sat next to the brother of one of the kids that he killed.
Oh, my God.
You know, like, that is insane.
It is.
You know, that's the messed up, like, evil people that we just have walking around.
Just imagine the brother's, like, mindset now.
Yeah.
After
We found
I mean,
out.
he's given some interviews, too, just being like, you just didn't know, you know?
Yeah.
You just didn't know. It's crazy, man.
Well, I guess we'll end the episode. Andy, thank you again for being on. It was a joy, and I'm sure everybody's gonna love this one as they did, you know, the previous ones. Josh, thanks for finally meeting Andy, sitting there and talking
Thanks
to
for
him.
being in studio.
I'm here, yeah. Here, I'm the suicide prevention and crisis lifeline
there
is
you go.
988. That's the number. Get that actual phone number, or maybe it did just change to. Yeah, it's
It did
988. It's SMS and call. So if anyone out there is struggling, you know, like we've talked about, just don't be afraid to get help. There's help out there. Even people who don't know you want you to get help.
Yeah,
You know, like there's nobody who wants you to struggle. So, you know, put your best foot forward. Everybody involved. If you know somebody, family, friends, even a coworker, you know, just everybody needs to try to look out for everybody.
Yep.
You know, especially nowadays. So.
Yep.
Thanks for including
Right on.
that, for sure. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. If you like the show, rate and review, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Follow the Facebook group page, as you'll get exclusive content, updates of what we're doing, this and that.
Part of the cult.
Yeah, part
baby.
of the cult.
Yeah, that's all it is.
The
Just
good
part of
cult.
the 676 strong. We're bigger than Manson ever wished he could have been.
But in a very positive,
Right.
good way.
Oh yeah, we're good. We're the good ones.
Mom doesn't like when I say cult.
That's why I always say Mom.
Yeah.
Sorry, Justin. Mom.
Yeah.
My bad.
Well,
What's the hotline?
oh yeah, the hotline, if you want to call the hotline into suggestions, if you want to, you know, ask Andy something,
Yeah.
you could text, leave a voicemail with the Cryptic Hotline, 540-358-1583. Yeah, I guess that's it. And lastly, watch your back. It's cryptic out there.